Welcome back to Mountain Connections. We talk about many topics right here on this live show every day, and something that we do like to focus on is health, to keep you updated on everything that's changing within the medical world. And right now we're going to focus on breast cancer. What do you need to know? Well, I recently spoke with Dr. Charles Geyer. Let's take a look.
Breast cancer is the most common cancer diagnosed in women worldwide. New research from prominent cancer meeting is for people with early breast cancer. It's shining light on that and much more. Here to tell us more is Dr. Charles Geyer. Thank you for being here today.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
So we've heard so much about the great progress that has been made with breast cancer, but what does this new research tell us about where we currently and some of the remaining gaps when it comes to people with early breast cancer?
Well, our treatments for early breast cancers have improved substantially over the past 30 years. And now with our standard treatments that usually involve chemotherapy, surgery, radiation for more advanced, for higher risk cancers, have really improved outcomes. But in spite of our standard therapies, there's been this persistent 25 to 35% chance of recurrence that we have clearly needed to address, find something to knock that down. And the study that we were privileged to report at our recent meeting, called the Olympia trial, was a large phase 3 study that evaluated a promising new way to attack a specific subset of these higher risk breast cancers, namely breast cancers that develop in men and women who inherited a BRCA1 or BRCA2 gene that did not code for a functioning protein. So they had a deficiency in a BRCA protein. As a result of that, they tend to develop cancers at an early age. BRCA-associated cancers can show up in the 20s, 30s, 40s. They can be bilateral. They tend to be higher risk. And the good news for these patients has been that our standard therapies work as well in BRCA-associated cancers as other cancers, but that deficit was still there. And research had already shown us we've actually have now drugs approved that take advantage of a unique vulnerability that BRCA-associated cancers have to inhibition of a very important protein that has to work within the cancer cells for the cancer cells to survive, called PARP. PARP blocking drugs have been developed, and when you block PARP in these cancer cells, they don't like it. They begin to die. It's a lethal effect for many of these cancer cells. And so these drugs are now used in patients who have metastatic cancers from a BRCA-associated disease. Our study simply took the next logical step. Well, if we add one of these therapies, a drug called olaparib, to standard therapy, can we knock that 25 to 35% recurrence rate down? And the exciting answer when we looked at our data was, yes, the drug does work. The risk of recurrence was reduced by a 42%, which is a large, large reduction. So very exciting news that we were able to share with the research and breast cancer community.
It is exciting news. And tell me a little bit more about the information from that study that was released surrounding early breast cancer advances.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. I mean, the important thing is that in the group of patients who received the placebo, which was a standard therapy, by the time we analyzed the data about 3 years after average follow-up of 3 years, set the percentage of patients free of cancer alive was 77% with standard therapy. When you added the olaparib, that 77% went up to 86%, a very large improvement. We also saw that patients were not developing cancer, have cancer showing up in distant organs, what we call distant disease-free survival, which is the most concerning part, so reinforcing disease. And while we can't yet say that we have shown that will improve survival because the study is still early, the early data is showing that it appears that fewer patients are dying from recurrent breast cancer with the PARP inhibitor, with the olaparib. So very, very strong, consistent efficacy data. And importantly, it also is a pretty well tolerated drug. Patients were able to stay on medication, side effects were manageable. So it's effective, it's tolerable. So it is something that we're very excited about. And we think that the strength of the data, we hope, will ultimately lead to review of our data by regulatory bodies and approval of the drug, so it will be available for routine use. Right now, it's still investigational. It's exciting information, but it's the important first step towards getting this available for patients with early breast cancer.
It definitely is. Where can we find out more information?
Best place to go is the NCI website, cancer.gov. They have a range of information on all topics related to cancer, and that includes recent research results. So you can find out more information about Olympia, about BRCA, gene testing, screening, all kinds of information.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Charles Geyer, for joining us today with this important information about breast cancer. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure.